Imagine for a second looking at a clock on your wall. You watch the secondhand tick, and there's this comforting assumption that every single tick is a universal metronome.
Right. A rigid rule that governs everything everywhere.
Exactly. But what if I told you that clock is actually lying to you?
Because it is. Time isn't a rigid rule at all.
No, it's a highly personal, completely flexible, biological reality. And today we are taking your stack of research, which covers everything from NASA's biological data to general relativity and even quantum mechanics.
It's a massive stack of sources today.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly how the laws of physics allow you to break that clock, or mapping out the actual physical reality of time travel.
Which is wild, because the craziest part of your sources isn't the science fiction stuff. It's the fact that one form of time travel is already a proven, documented biological reality.
Yeah, and the other form, that one requires searching for, mathematical escape clauses in the very fabric of the universe.
So by the end of this deep dive, you, the listener, are going to understand exactly what the laws of physics permit, the loopholes they violently guard, and what all of this actually means for human existence.
Consider this your shortcut to being the most well-informed person in the room when it comes to the mechanics of time. So let's start with what is already an undeniable scientific fact, right? We don't need to look at theoretical physics to find time travelers.
No, we really just need to look at NASA.
Right. We are all moving forward in time, obviously. But Einstein's theories of relativity prove that we can actually manipulate the speed of that forward travel.
Yeah, using velocity and gravity. The underlying mechanism here is time dilation. General relativity dictates that time is not absolute. It bends.
It's flexible.
Exactly. It runs measurably slower near a massive gravitational object, or when you're moving at incredible speeds relative to someone who's just standing still.
Right. So the faster your physical body moves through space, the slower your personal clock ticks relative to the rest of the universe.
That's the core of it, yeah.
And we actually have the ultimate real-world proof of this mechanics in action, which is the NASA Twins study.
Such a fascinating study.
It really is. So we have identical twin astronauts, Scott and Mark Kelly. Scott spent 340 days on the International Space Station, traveling at orbital speeds of 17,000 miles per hour in microgravity.
While Mark, his identical twin, just stayed right down here on Earth.
Right. And because of that intense velocity and the shift in gravity, Scott literally traveled into the future. When his capsule landed, he was actually milliseconds younger than his identical twin brother.
The math of relativity worked absolutely flawlessly there. But the biological data NASA extracted from that year-long experiment, that completely changes how we should view the math.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it reveals a pretty brutal reality about forward time travel.
Okay, let's unpack this, because pop culture really romanticizes space travel, We always think of fast-forwarding through time as this glorious, pristine joyride among the stars.
Right, sitting in a sleek white chair while the stars blur past you.
Exactly. But the actual toll on Scott Kelly's body was incredibly severe. Even 6 months after he landed, 7% of his gene expression, specifically the genes involved in immune function and DNA repair, had still not returned to normal.
What's fascinating here is how the data brilliantly illustrates that the human body operates as a deeply coupled, interdependent network.
It's all connected.
Right. Spaceflight doesn't just snap one isolated component. It perturbs the entire system. When you strip away Earth's gravity and introduce galactic cosmic radiation, you get mitochondrial dysfunction.
Which is bad news for your cells.
Very bad. And that feeds directly into immune dysregulation, which alters gene expression, which then changes how your liver processes lipids. And that circles right back around to damage cellular energy production.
It's just a cascading biological failure.
Exactly.
The most shocking metric to me in the sources, though, was the telomere data. So telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes.
Yeah, the caps.
Right. So think of them like the little plastic aglets on the tips of your shoelaces, right? They keep the DNA from unraveling. As we age, or as we experience stress, those plastic tips wear down and get shorter.
And every single predictive model going into that mission assumed Scott's telomeres would shorten dramatically. I mean, spaceflight is an intensely toxic environment.
Oh, yeah. You've got radiation literally shredding your cells.
Right. Radiation, the fluid shifts from microgravity, massive sleep disruption. The body's just under constant siege up there.
But the exact opposite happened. Up in space, completely defying all the predictions, his telomeres actually lengthened. His cells look visibly younger.
Which is mind-blowing.
Right. But then The moment his capsule hit Earth's gravity, they didn't just casually return to normal, they collapsed to a level far below his pre-mission baseline.
Yeah, they crashed.
So it's like spaceflight magically stretched those shoelace tips out, but the absolute second he slammed back into Earth's gravity, well, they just snapped off entirely.
He came back with a massive population of unusually short telomeres.
And it wasn't just microscopic either. He suffered a persistent cognitive penalty. Like, his reaction times and physical accuracy were measurably slower for months after landing.
It really forces a total redefinition of what a time traveler actually is. Forward time travel, at least via relativistic speeds and microgravity, it isn't a magical leap where you wake up fresh in the future.
No, not at all.
It is a profound biological trauma.
Yeah.
Your cells, your liver, your cognition, the body remembers the orbit at a molecular level.
So we know the universe allows us to fast forward, even if it violently punishes our biology for doing it. But the universe doesn't seem to have a rewind button for human cells.
Sadly, no.
So to go backward, we can't look at biology. We have to look at the very fabric of space itself. Like, are there structural loopholes in the universe that allow us to reverse the clock?
Well, physicists have been hunting for those mathematical loopholes for almost a century now. In theoretical astrophysics, they are known as closed time-like curves, or CTCs.
CTCs, right?
Yeah. These are literal paths in space-time that loop back on themselves. Kurt Gödel, the brilliant mathematician, actually used Einstein's own field equations in 1949 to prove this. He showed that if the entire universe were rotating, these CTCs would naturally exist.
So you could just, fly a ship in a specific loop and arrive in your own past?
Precisely.
Or there's Frank Tipler, who showed in the 70s that an infinitely long, rapidly rotating cylinder could drag space-time around it so intensely that it creates a path into the past.
Right, the Tipler cylinder.
Yeah, but an infinitely long cylinder isn't exactly something you can just pick up at a hardware store. It's a mathematically impossible engineering project.
Which is exactly why the focus eventually shifted to the most orthodox, faster-than-light mechanism in physics, which is the Schwarzschild wormhole, formerly known as an Einstein-Rosen bridge.
Okay, so the math says we need a wormhole. But, how does one actually get their hands on a tunnel through space-time? Does the universe just spawn them for us to use?
Not exactly. And this is where a seminal 1988 paper by Kip Thorne, Michael Morris, and Ulvi Yurtsever comes in.
The famous wormhole paper.
Exactly. The paper reads like pure science fiction, but the mathematics are deadly serious. They propose that an incredibly advanced civilization wouldn't build a wormhole from scratch.
Oh, really?
Right. Instead, they would look into what is called the quantum foam.
Quantum foam. What is that exactly?
At the absolute smallest scale of empty space, we're talking the 10 to the power of -33 centimeter scale. Spatial topology isn't smooth. It is chaotic. It's constantly fluctuating, bubbling with these microscopic wormholes popping in and out of existence.
So space is basically fizzy at the microscopic level.
Fizzy is a good word for it, yeah.
Yeah.
The theory suggests you could physically extract one of these microscopic tunnels from the foam and artificially enlarge it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's say you do that, right? You manage to capture a microscopic wormhole and blow it up to the size of a garage. The mechanics of turning that physical tunnel into a time machine rely entirely on the exact same time dilation that Scott Kelly experienced, right?
Correct. You use the proven forward time travel mechanism to create the backward time travel machine.
I just love this concept. Let's try to make it tangible for the listener. Imagine you have two synchronized doors connecting the same room.
Okay, two doors.
You leave the front door planted solidly here on Earth, but you take the back door, put it on a rocket, and blast it out into space at, say, 86.6% the speed of light.
Moving very fast.
Extremely fast. You fly it around for a while and then bring it back. Because the rocket was moving so fast, its clock slowed down. The back door actually aged slower than the front door.
Because of time dilation.
Exactly. So when you step through the front door on Earth a year later, you are stepping out of a back door that hasn't experienced that full year yet. You are stepping into the past.
Because the spatial connection of the wormhole has been artificially transformed into a temporal connection.
Right. But wait, hold on. I have to push back on this a little bit. Because general relativity also tells us that a tunnel made of pure gravity is going to be incredibly volatile.
Very volatile.
If I try to step through that door, wouldn't the sheer gravitational force of a wormhole just instantly crush me? Or wouldn't it just pinch closed before even a single beam of light could make it across?
You are entirely correct to be suspicious of that. The equations are brutal on this front. In its pristine natural form, a Schwarzschild wormhole is dismayingly unstable. it collapses almost instantaneously.
It snaps shut.
Right. The universe is fiercely protective of causality. That's the fundamental rule that a cause must always precede its effect.
Okay, so the math allows us to conceptually build the doors, but physical reality violently refuses to let us keep them open. Why? Like, how does the universe actually stop us?
Well, to keep the throat of your wormhole open, you would need to line it with something called exotic matter.
Exotic matter.
Yeah. This is matter with a negative energy density. It essentially acts as anti-gravity, pushing space outward to counteract the crushing weight of the wormhole trying to collapse.
Negative energy. That sounds completely made up. I mean, how can you have less than zero energy?
I know, it sounds like a literal cheat code, but tiny amounts of it actually exist in quantum physics. It's a proven thing. It's called the Casimir effect.
Okay, how does that work?
Think of two microscopic metal plates placed incredibly close together in a complete vacuum. In quantum mechanics, a vacuum isn't truly empty. It's boiling with virtual particles popping in and out of existence constantly.
The fizzy space again.
Exactly. But because the plates are so unbelievably close to each other, only certain very specific wavelengths of these virtual particles can physically fit between them.
Oh, I see. So there are literally fewer particles bouncing around inside the gap than there are outside in the open vacuum.
Exactly, which means the outward pressure from inside the plates is physically less than the inward pressure from the surrounding vacuum outside.
So it's a deficit.
Right. That deficit creates a localized pocket of negative energy density between the plates. It actually pushes apart.
Okay, so negative energy is real. But scaling that microscopic quantum quirk up to hold a spaceship-sized tunnel open, I mean, the energy requirements to generate that much exotic matter are just absurd. It violates the weak energy condition of physics.
It does. And even if you miraculously manage to gather, say, a Jupiter-sized sphere of exotic matter to stabilize your tunnel, you immediately crash into the causal paradoxes.
Ah, the universe's ultimate defense mechanism.
Exactly. The most famous one being the grandfather paradox.
Right. You step through your perfectly stabilized wormhole, go back in time, and accidentally prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother.
Therefore, you were never born to build a time machine in the first place.
Which completely breaks the universe. It's a total logical nightmare.
It is. Now, to resolve this, physicist Igor Novikov proposed the self-consistency principle. He argued that you mathematically cannot change the past.
You can't change it at all.
No. Any actions taken by a time traveler were already baked into the timeline from the very beginning. If you go back to stop an event, your actions in the past are actually the very things that caused the event to happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You don't change history. You merely fulfill your role in it.
Wait, let's test that logically. If I try to go back and say, stop myself from doing something deeply embarrassing, how does the universe physically stop me? Like, does a physical force grab my arm? Do my muscles just freeze up?
This raises an important question about how the universe actually enforces its rules. Stephen Hawking took a much more aggressive stance on this than Novikov with his chronology protection conjecture.
The Chronology Protection Agency, right?
Yes. Hawking suggested the universe acts like a heavily armed agency. He theorized that the very instant a wormhole is manipulated into becoming a time machine, the random quantum energy waves, those vacuum fluctuations we just talked about, would build up inside the loop.
Oh, I think I get this. It's like audio feedback when you put a microphone too close to a speaker.
Exactly like audio feedback. The quantum energy would travel through the wormhole, come out the other side in the past, travel back through again, and just amplify infinitely.
It would just build and build.
Right. Within a fraction of a second, this massive spiked radiation would completely destroy the wormhole before the time loop could even fully form.
So the universe effectively blows up the bridge to make reality, as Hawking put it, safe for historians.
It blows it up.
So gravity and astrophysics act as a literal brick wall against paradoxes. But if the macro universe of gravity is a brick wall, how does the microscopic world of quantum mechanics handle it? Because your sources point to some truly wild quantum fixes for these paradoxes.
They do. This is where we shift from the macro scale to the micro scale. In 1991, physicist David Deutsch proposed a model for closed time-like curves using quantum mechanics.
Okay, Deutsch's model.
Right. And Deutsch's model uses density matrices and the maximization of entropy to find what are called self-consistent fixed points.
Okay, we definitely need to translate density matrices for the listener. How does that actually solve the grandfather paradox?
In Deutsch's model, if you send a quantum bit, a qubit, back in time to flip its past self from a 0 to a 1, The paradox is avoided because the qubit enters a mixed state.
A mixed state.
Yeah. Think of it like a blurred photograph where two completely different realities exist faintly on top of each other.
Both are kind of there.
Right. The qubit exists as a superposition of both having stopped the event and not having stopped the event. Because neither reality is absolute, the logical paradox just doesn't have enough teeth to break the timeline.
That sounds a lot like the many worlds interpretation.
It borrows heavily from it, yeah, where outcomes just split.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more because Seth Lloyd, another physicist in our source material, looked at Deutsch's model and completely disagreed with it.
He did.
Lloyd proposed a theory of post-selected time travel, or PCTCs, and he treats the time loop not as a physical tube you fly down, but as quantum teleportation.
Yes, and Lloyd's approach is mathematically fascinating because it doesn't require alternative universes or those blurry mixed states. He uses post-selection.
What is post-selection exactly?
It's a mathematical process that actively filters out any outcome that would create a paradox. It assigns a strict mathematical zero probability to those problematic events.
So if you, the listener, were to step into Seth Lloyd's quantum time machine to stop that embarrassing moment from happening, you wouldn't feel a physical wall stopping you.
No, you wouldn't.
It's more like walking into a highly rigged casino, right?
That's right.
Or playing a video game where the developers just removed an action. The universe's code just deletes the shoot button if you point the gun at your grandfather.
Exactly, the gun jams. You slip on a banana peel, a bird flies in the way.
Whatever ridiculous sequence of events has to happen, it will happen because the probability of the paradoxical outcome occurring is literally, mathematically, zero.
The universe simply adjusts the probabilities around you to forbid the paradox perfectly. You are mathematically barred from creating an inconsistency.
So, what does this all mean for us? If Lloyd's quantum math ensures the gun always jams, and Novikov's principle says our past actions were always baked into history from the very beginning, we really have to look at what this means for human existence.
We do.
Like, are we just passengers? Does free will actually exist at all?
And this is exactly where the physics bleeds directly into philosophy. Time travel stops being just a logistical engineering problem and becomes the ultimate stress test for our understanding of reality itself.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. This brings us to the philosophical theory of eternalism, which is often called the block universe.
Right. Because special relativity proves there is no absolute universal present, right? Like, my now could literally be your future depending on how fast we are moving relative to each other.
Exactly. And because of that, eternalism argues that the past, present, and future must all be equally real.
So time doesn't flow.
Right. Time doesn't flow like a river. It is a solid, completely unchanging four-dimensional block of space-time.
So in a block universe, your birth, your current moment listening to this audio, and your eventual death, they all exist simultaneously, forever, within that space-time block.
We just experience it sequentially, frame by frame.
Think about what this means for your regrets. If the block universe is real, feeling guilty about a past mistake is basically like being mad at a scene in a DVD you're watching.
That's a great way to put it.
The scene was always there, right? The disc was pressed at the factory. You just happened to reach that specific timestamp on the screen. It fundamentally erases the concept of what if.
It does.
So is the feeling of making a choice right now just an illusion?
It is a highly deterministic and frankly very uncomfortable view of human existence. But to be completely impartial here, a lot of modern physicists push back hard against this interpretation.
They don't all agree with the block universe.
No, not at all. Lee Smolin, for instance, argues that time is physically fundamental. He theorizes a thick present, where the laws of physics themselves actually evolve over time through cosmological natural selection.
And Avshalom Elitzer completely rejects the block universe, too. He passionately argues that next Thursday does not exist ontologically.
Right.
He actually points to quantum mechanical experiments like the incredibly slow evaporation of black holes over trillions of years to argue that time truly does pass. Reality is being written right now. It isn't pre-recorded on some cosmic DVD.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a fierce debate. Because if time travel to the past is physically possible, even just mathematically, through a microscopic wormhole, it heavily implies that the block universe must be real.
How so?
Well, you mathematically cannot travel to a past that no longer exists, and you cannot travel to a future that hasn't been built yet. They have to exist for you to go to them.
Wow. Okay, let's distill all of this because we have covered an incredible amount of ground today.
We really have.
We've discovered that forward time travel is a proven reality, But as Scott Kelly's telomeres showed us, it is a destructive, deeply traumatic reality for the human biological network.
And backward time travel is theoretically permitted by the math of general relativity through synchronized wormholes and those closed time-like curves, but it is fiercely guarded by Hawking's physics police.
Plus the massive exotic energy requirement.
Right, and the threat of quantum feedback loops just destroying the bridge entirely.
Meanwhile, the microscopic realm of quantum mechanics resolves the paradoxes by simply making them mathematically impossible. It adjusts probabilities to zero, which leaves us to grapple with the philosophical fallout of the block universe and the really haunting question of our own free will.
It is a fascinating landscape where human biology, theoretical astrophysics, and fundamental philosophy just violently collide.
But before we go, there is one final, incredibly provocative thought from your source material that we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, right.
We talked about Seth Lloyd's post-selected quantum time travel, right? Where the math forces self-consistency by adjusting probabilities. Well, that specific model has profound implications, not just for human astronauts, but for computation itself.
Ah, yes. The computational power of PCTCs. A computer with access to a quantum time loop wouldn't just be fast. It could instantly solve what computer scientists call the PP complexity class of problems.
Okay, translate PP complexity class for me and the listener. What does that actually mean in practice?
Imagine a massive maze with a trillion branching paths, and only one of them leads to the exit. A normal computer has to check them one by one.
Which takes forever.
Right. Now, a regular quantum computer might check them all simultaneously, but still struggle to isolate the right answer quickly. But a computer using a post-selected time loop, it runs the calculation and sends the answer back in time to itself.
Wait, it sends it back before it finishes.
Exactly. And if the answer it sends back is wrong, it triggers a paradox. And as we know, the universe mathematically forbids paradoxes in this model. So the only outcome physically allowed to happen is the one where it sends back the correct answer.
It fundamentally changes what we might use a time machine for. It wouldn't be a vehicle.
Exactly. It would be an oracle. It could instantly solve problems regarding complex protein folding, global logistics, or cryptography that would normally take a traditional computer the entire lifetime of the universe to crack.
So I invite you to ponder this. What if the very first time machine humanity successfully builds isn't a silver vehicle for astronauts to go back and visit the dinosaurs?
That's a wild thought.
What if it is just a microscopic quantum computer designed to loop a single qubit back a fraction of a second, just to instantly solve the unsolvable? We spent all this time worrying about stepping on a butterfly in the past, but the real power of time travel might just be the ultimate cheat code for the universe's math.
It's a completely paradigm-shifting way to look at the fabric of reality.
It really is. So the next time you look at that clock on your wall and you hear it ticking, remember, it's not measuring a universal law. It's just measuring your specific, highly localized journey through a universe that might just be a single solid block of space-time. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.